Okay, welcome back. We just ended where we wanted to be a couple weeks ago. So now when we pick up the gun, we have a target to shoot at. We track how many bullets you have left, how many targets you've hit, and then what your shooting percentage is currently. And we can just take a quick look at that with this. So when we move, we can now pick up the gun. It pops into our hand. Oh, and something's happening with my camera, and it's not always. So we're just going to restart it. And we're going to look into that problem later. That is not a tonight problem. It might become a tonight problem. It is. What is it destroying? I feel like somehow it's destroying my main camera. We're going to look at here in just a second. There we go. No. It destroyed the player itself. All right, well, let's look into solving this problem real quick. I think the easiest way to deal with this, we're going to go to our gun. We're going to turn it on so we can see the one that we are holding. And we're going to zoom in on that and then go to our launch point. And it might just be for the fact that it is so close and we're moving forward. So we're going to go ahead and move that launch point out. It's not really going to give a different visual, but I'm going to bet you this is going to solve our problem. So we'll go ahead and turn that off. Close this down. Nothing like a couple little problems before we get started into our next topic. But this is what game dev is honestly all about. You're going to run into these problems, and they're going to happen, and then your job's to fix them. There we go. Yeah, that's what was happening. So once again, this is where we're at. And now we're going to add, as you can see, when we do this, we have a bullet clone that comes up. So we're making a new bullet. We're taking that prefab and we're making a bullet, instantiating it into the scene as a game object. And then currently, 5 seconds later, or if it hits something, it's destroying the bullet. And that's fine if you're doing just a small little game, but let's say we had a machine gun and we've got, 10,000 bullets that can be fired out of this machine gun. That's a lot of system resources that you're using. Eventually you're going to have to, the system's going to have to do a garbage dump and take out all that trash and clean it up, and that's going to cause some lag at some point. So we want to avoid that. So we're going to do a best practices for that. As we had talked about previously, my plan was to do a little bit with design patterns for you all, and the object pool is a design pattern actually. And so what its idea is it manages a pool of objects, right? So this could be bullets like we're going to do tonight. We're eventually going to add this into sorry about that again. We're going to add that into our enemies, a way of tracking them. We can add this to anything that's going to be used, quote, destroyed, and reused throughout that environment. So anytime you have something like that, object pool might be the way to go. If it's just one or two things, it's really not a big deal. But once again, if we were firing and wanting to constantly just fire bullet after bullet after bullet, it's going to eventually have some negative effect on the resources. So, all right, so how do we do an object pool? An object pool is pretty darn crazy. So what we're going to add at this point, because we are good, oh, I've got Jolly Ranchers, and apparently this one is coming to an end. So we're going to grab another one here in a moment. Okay, so in our scene, we're going to add another empty game object, right? This is just something we want to hold some code. And so for this, we're going to start diving into what I like to call the controller. This is kind of, I use this as a game object that holds 90 to 95% of all the code that is controlling the game itself. So I like to just name it controller because that's easy. And into our controller, we're going to add a script. All of this is handled through one script. We're going to make some changes to our bullet a bit, but we're not going to do anything too crazy. So it's going to be two new scripts, one or two more scripts. I can't remember. We're going to get to it. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to start by adding a new script. So let's go into our scripts folder. We don't need that one open. So once again, right click to open up this menu. We're going to create a C# script, and we're going to call this object pool. And this is where we're going to track our objects in. So that's going to eventually open up the script. Let's get that open. I'll drag this back over, showing that we've got that together. And so then what we're going to do is we need to, we're just going to create a serialized field. Oh, I get so excited when it's there, and then I always hit the wrong button. So serialized field, it is going to be a private because we just don't need access to it otherwise. And this is going to be a game object, right? And so we want to know what is the object to pool, right? So with this game object, we could bring in a this could be bullets, this could be enemies, this could be lots of different things. These could be walls. This could be, depends upon what you need it for. This is going to be different things. Sorry, I'm opening up another Jolly Rancher. My one just ran out, and I'm starting to cough. Okay. So we need to know what it is we are pooling. And then we're going to, this doesn't matter, we're going to go private, so we don't need to see this. You could bring this out if you wanted to. It doesn't need to be brought out. What we want to do is say, how many objects do we want to make at a time? So this is where you need to figure out what is the maximum amount of objects that you could fire and be active in the scene at the same time. So let's say, so currently 10 would be the most that we can do, right? We can only pick up 10 bullets with our gun. So 10 would make sense, but what if we get more ammo, right? We only have the one gun right now, but let's say we ended up picking up more ammo, and we had now like 1,000 ammo, and we had a machine gun that shot 1,000 rounds a second. Way crazy, but it's what we're going to go with for the example, right? So then in that case, we could, well, let's say, they die after 5 seconds, right? Or they hit. So let's say in the case, it's 100 rounds a second, and you're going for 5 seconds, right? So that'd be a maximum of 500 bullets that could be going at a time. So this max pool size is going to really be dependent upon how many, whatever it is, are going to be out on the screen at once. We're going to just set it to 20 at the moment. This is more than we need by far in this situation, but we can always come back and change this number as needed. Okay. We're going to use potentially a new one for you. So we're going to create a private. This is going to be a stack. So what we're doing is we're creating that pool. The stack is a stack of objects that we're creating. And so what we're doing is, since they're going to be game objects, as we have up here in a object to pool is a game object, so this is going to be a stack of game objects. And we want them to currently all be inactive. So we're going to call this inactive objects. For this, we want to go ahead and instantiate it. So we're going to do a new stack of game objects and fully put it into place. So what do we want to do? So what the object of this is the moment the game or the level loads, we're going to load and make every bullet you could possibly fire at once. Take that load on in the beginning. During that time, you can even have it kind of be a part of that load time in between. So it definitely is not felt in the gameplay. So what we're going to do is in our start, if the object to pull is null, or is not null, sorry. If the object to pull is not null, right? So we have an object that we want to pull. It's there. We know we want to pull it. We want to run a for loop. Int I equals 0. You should, I'm hoping most of you know this by now. We're setting up how many times we're going to run through the loop. So for a number of iterations, we're going to run this loop. So we set that first variable to 0 because we don't have any yet. Then we're saying as long as I, the 0, is less than the max pool size, right? This is where that comes in. You're going to run the code, and then at the end of the code, we're going to add 1 to I. So then that's going to iterate through every time we come through. It's going to run the code here in between these brackets and do it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new just variable. It's tied to the start, and it's going to be called new object. This could be new bullet, this could be new enemy, whatever it is. And then we're going to instantiate object to pull, right? So this is that object that we have. Now, what we're going to want to do, because we're just creating this as a pool of objects for our use, none of these are usable at this moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the new object needs to be set. The set active needs to be off. So we're going to set active to false. So it's going to make all these, but turn them off so you can't see them. And then because this is a stack, the way to access a stack is inactive objects dot, we're going to push the new object to the stack. So we're going to push and pull from the stack. That's how accessing the stack works. So this is going to, once again, we have a max pool size of 20. It's going to go, as long as we put something in the object to pull, it's going to loop through instantiating the new object, setting the new object to hidden or set active false, and then pushing that new object to the inactive objects stack. Okay. I hope you're all with me still. Then what we're going to do, we don't need an update with this, right? This is just something that is going to run at the start, and then we're going to get and return objects from that. So we can just delete the update loop function. So we don't need that. We're going to, these are all, the other two of these are going to be public functions because we need to get them from other code. So we're going to allow us to get the object from the pool and then return the object to the pool. So those need to be public. And we're going to be working with game objects. So we want it to return a game object to us whenever we run this from another code. Get object from the pool. So get object from pool. So whenever we want to get something from a bullet to fire, we're going to get it from the pool. This is going to be red underlined because we're saying, by putting, instead of a void here, we're saying a game object. Until we have a return here, this is going to be like, nah, you haven't done it right. So we want to do a while loop. One of my least favorite loops, but this one is necessary here. So while the inactive objects, the count of those is greater than 0. So only you're going to be able to pull an object from the pool if there's an object in the pool to pull. That's a fun one. I should start a book of tongue twisters. Okay. So as long as this is greater than 0, right, we're going to create a new variable that's called object. And this object is going to pop. I'm sorry, it's not pull, it's pop. We're going to pop one of the game objects off the stack. So we're going to do inactive objects, pop it right out. And then if object, I'll make that a capital O to fat, doesn't equal null, right? So there is actually an object there. We're going to object set active to true. We're going to turn that thing on, and we're going to return object. So now that we've returned the object, this, as I described before, should have gone away. The problem with that is, what if we got to get to because it's looking for a return of something, we need to return something. So since we're going straight into a loop, if there are 0 objects in the inoptive objects, we can't run this loop. So it's just going to pass it. So we need to make sure that we also return null. So if there's nothing in the pool to grab, we're going to return nothing. And so now that we return nothing, have the option to return nothing, we'll never get to that point. But if we did, now the red line went away and we're good. Okay, we're going to finish this off with a public. This time we're going to do a void because we're not looking for anything back, we're putting it back. So we're going to return object to the pool. And this time we're looking for a game object. We need to hand that. So when we pop the object off, turned it on again, and we sent that to whatever needs it, which is going to be the gun and the player at this point. But we've sent that away as a game object. So we're going to be giving it back as a game object. So we want to have it require a game object to come back. And this is object to deactivate. Right? So it's been technically destroyed, it's been used up, whether it's because it has run out of time or if it's because it hit something, right? We're deactivating, we're turning it off. We're not destroying it anymore because we're not, that's not how this works, right? We're getting out of that instantiate destroy. We've instantiated and now we're just turning on and off actually. So we're going to go ahead and return the object to deactivate. So once again, we want to always double check with these. Object to deactivate. We want to make sure it's not nothing, right? It doesn't do us any good for deactivating nothing. So we're going to make sure that it's not nothing. Then we're going to do the object to deactivate. We're going to turn it off again, so set active false. And then we need to get this back into our pool to use again. So we're just going to do like we did before, inactive objects. We're going to push that object to deactivate. So once again, we go through, we set up how big of a pool, what we're going to be pooling. We set up the stack that we're using for the pool. Then we're going to instantiate all the objects at once. We're just going to take a moment and we're going to make all of them. This could be like, we've got the 20 bullets for this. This could be 1,000 bullets, whatever that is. It just makes them all at once. Then whenever we go to, in this case, shoot or grab an enemy, whatever it is, we're going to make sure there's one to reactivate and use. Pop it off the stack. And then we're going to turn it on and give it to whatever needs it. And then they're going to deal with it from there. Then once it's been all used up, we're going to send it back here, return object to the pool. We're going to send it in as the object to deactivate. Make sure it's not nothing. And then we're going to turn it off so that we don't see it anymore. And then we're going to push it back to our stack. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. And then, all right, so what we're going to do now, we've got that saved. We're going to come back here. And we're going to add one more thing. Actually, we're not going to add it to this. I'm just kidding. We're going to add it somewhere else. So we're going to add to our controller game object, we're going to add object pool. I mean, surprise, surprise, right? Now, once again, object to pool. We need this to be our prefab bullet, right? That's what we're doing with this. This could be, if we wanted to, this could actually be our gun prefab. If we wanted to make it where you pick up a gun in the environment and maybe after like 5-10 seconds, another one randomly appears somewhere. That is a perfectly good use of this as well. But for this, we're just doing it for the bullets because it tends to be one of the main uses of it. So we're going to attach it to the bullet. And then we need to go back into our player controller, right? So what we're doing with this is we need to update our shooting the gun because that's what we're doing. We are no longer making a bullet. We are purely going to be grabbing it from that pool. So what we want to do is we're going to come up here at the top and we're just going to do another serialized field, private, it's a game object, and we're just going to call it the controller. Right, so now anything game related that we attach to the controller, we have now access to. Since I tend to forget this all the time, I'm going to add that real quick, save it, come back out to the player, and I'm going to drag our controller straight away in there so I don't forget and get that message of like, hey, that's a null option. Let's not miss that one. So, okay, we've got that. Let's come back to our code. Okay, so once again, all that we care about is our shoot gun functionality. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to, hold on just a second. What we want to do is we're going to, instead of having this, because we're instantiating as a game object, we're going to just go ahead and add up here because it's all part of it now. We're going to do a private game object bullet. It's going to scream at us in a second. No, it doesn't because it was there. And we're just going to take this out. Because we just want to now make it easy that we're just adding it to that. We're keeping our is shooting true, right? If we're shooting the gun, then we say we're shooting the gun, right? Because we can go into our shooting pause. That allows us to then reshoot again. We subtract a bullet from our bullets. We add 1 to our shots fired. Now we need to actually get that bullet. So we're going to now do bullet equals, right? So we're setting this, we're calling out to it. We're going to do controller.getComponent. We want the object pool because that's the code that we're getting this from. And we're going to get object from the pool. Right, so we're running this one here where it's going to check, is there one, and then pop it off and hand it back, right? The return of the object, and the object here is a game object. The object to pool, the game object, right? And so we're returning that now to the player. And then all we need to do for this, we have in our object pool, right? We turned it, here we are. We turned it back on already, right? So it's already on. So what we need to do, we get it back on. It's great. We don't need set active to true. All we need to do now is transform where it is. That's all it is. Bam. There we go. And now it's going to launch it. It's going to change the text. right? The bullet text, which is how many bullets we have. And then it's going to start the coroutine, which is going to be the pause. So we're going to change this a little bit so we can shoot a little faster. Because every half second, you know, let's just leave it at that. It should be all right. It'll give you an idea. And then we can switch it up in a second. Okay, so we've popped the bullet off of the stack, and we have now fired it. Okay, what we need to now do is update the bullet collider. So, what we're going to do for that is we need to update our bullet collider, right? So now it's no longer, so it can still, we still want to set it to potentially destroy, but we're going to do that actually in a different way. And so what we're going to do on this is we're going to change this up a whole bunch. So we need a private on here because we're going to need to, we're going to add a couple things. First, to handle when it dies now. So if it doesn't hit anything, it needs to eventually die. So we're going to handle that currently through paying attention to how long it's been alive for. So we're going to need to know when it started. And then we're going to add one other private. And this is the game object. And this is to the object. Well, we're just going to call it controller again. Because that's where we're putting it, right? So we need access to that. So on start on here doesn't actually work for us. So what we actually need instead of an on start actually is not one of the first ones that happens. I need to remember to get you guys an image of when everyone an image that shows when the different on enables, start, everything happens. So what we want on this is an on enable. It can be a private void. It doesn't matter. It can also just be a void if you want to remove it. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing, right? We'll just leave it private. But on enable, right? So on enable happens when it is turned on. So we're going to be turning this on and off, and when it turns on, we want it to reset something. So that's why we need the on enable, not on start. We need to have the controller equal a game object find, and we want to go ahead and have it find controller, right? So that is where we have our object pool happening. Once again, I said, you don't really want to do this if it's heavily happening. This is gonna, we're firing a bullet less than once per frame. There are multiple frames that are happening in between firing a bullet, so it's really not that intensive. So once again, we can use it. And so what we need to do is then also we want start time to equal time dot time. So we're saying, hey, what on my computer, on my system, what time does it say it is? And so we're going to then add that to the start time. What time did this turn back on, basically? Because we're going to be measuring the start time, we actually need an update. And so with this, we're just going to track if the current time, so current time is time.time, right? So if the current time minus the start time is greater than 5 seconds. So 5F, it's a float because it's going to return a float. So if this is more than 5 seconds, we're going to save our on collision for a few moments. because we're going to take some of the code away from it. But we're going to run a new function called, it's going to be a private void, return object to pool. This is setting us up for being able to return the bullet to the bullet pool. All right. So what we want to do for this, so then we're going to, so if this is the case, if we've made it that 5 seconds, we're just going to return object to the pool. Okay. So I was wrong on deleting the on collision. We're just going to remove the destroy object. So instead of the destroy object, we are going to now, once again, return object to the pool. So whether it dies because it's been longer than 5 seconds, or it hits something, we're returning it to the pool. Now, because we've done, when we fire our bullet, let me go back to our bullet script real quick. Let's save this for a moment. Right, so we are adding to that bullet force, and we're doing impulse force. If we don't negate that velocity, it will stay and then turn back on, and so then it will just be added to what we do next time. So we need to now, before we return that object to the pool, we want to get component rigid body. So this is the rigid body of the bullet, right? So this is the bullet's collider. And then we want to change the velocity, and we want the vector3 to equal vector3.0. This sets that velocity to 0. It is no longer moving. So then when we hit it again, trigger that bullet again, we start from fresh. We're not adding to the velocity that's already going. So we want to make sure that we turn that off. And so then to return this to the pool, we're going to do controller. We're going to get the component, right? We want the object pool because that's what we've been working with. And we're going to return the object to the pool. And we register with errors because we don't have the game object that we need to pass. So because we're just passing this bullet back, it's just game object. So once again, we're going to start it up on enable. We're going to make it find the controller so we can send it back to the pool and start the time. If it's more than 5 seconds, it's going to return it to the pool, or if it hits something, it's going to return it to the pool. We first set its velocity to 0, so nothing carries over, and then we return it to the pool, and we're returning specifically the game object. Okay, let us go ahead and save all of that. And if everything is working, let's make sure that we are good here. The bullet is still fine. We have the bullet script. Nothing new has been added to it that we need to deal with. And we have our player. So we'll cross our fingers. As long as everything is working as it should, the moment I hit play, we should see 20 objects form here. Let's see what happens. And bam. It created 20 clones of the bullet. And they're all off, right? We don't see them. All right. So now, if I move forward and I pick up the gun and I pull the trigger, you can see that bottom bullet turned on, and it's 5 seconds. I didn't hit anything, and it went back. Hasn't changed anything in here. So now if I shoot as quick as I can, you'll see that they start going back. I can actually shoot again, right up until I don't have any more bullets. But the number of bullets never changes. It just turns them off. So, and then once again, we'll double check and make sure everything is correct and make sure that it's going to actually go back into the pool when I actually hit the target. So we'll miss, and then we'll hit it, and we'll eventually hit it, and it immediately went back to the pool, and now these are eventually leaving. All right, so there is technically our first design pattern, the object pool pattern, and we're using for, in this case, our bullets. Once again, that number in the pool is going to be reflective of how many do you actually need. In this case, I couldn't even fire that many. So probably too big of a pool, but it's there for, okay, what is my fastest shot speed and how many bullets could potentially be fired before the first one goes back to the pool. And I would always probably give a buffer of about 10, just to make sure, unless it's an absolutely huge number, and then maybe buffer it by 100. But so that now moves us, finishes our second part into our class game. And if you have any questions on this, please either reach out an email or I will be available via Zoom tomorrow. And then I will see you in the next video here shortly.